Hey friends, if you've dabbled in cookie decorating and are familiar with royal icing and piping bags, today is the decorating day for you. So this tutorial is just a little bit more challenging than what I did yesterday for two main reasons. First, I'm using many more colors of icing, so it requires more mixing and prep work. And then second, I'm using a wet on wet technique, which isn't really complicated, but it does require you to move a little bit faster and have some urgency to your movement. So if you try these techniques out, please let me know how it works out for you. Tag me in your post on Instagram. And while you're here, click subscribe. I'm releasing new decorating tutorials every day this week, and I don't want you to miss out. I hope you enjoy this tutorial, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I'm using a number 2 tip for my white icing here, and just following around the perimeter of the cookie and then filling in the center, smoothing out the white icing with a toothpick just to make sure that it's kind of nice and level. And then putting the blue icing on, you can see I'm piping directly out of my piping bag. This was my first time piping directly out of a bag without a tip, and I really did not like it. I felt like I could never get a really clean point. I felt like the icing didn't release properly when I was lifting up from the surface of the cookie, so I really didn't enjoy it. I've seen a lot of videos of people doing it, but it really just wasn't for me, so I won't try that again. You can definitely do 2 or 3 of these at one time to help speed the process up. I wouldn't do too much more than that though, because you want to make sure the icing is nice and wet so that the sugar sticks properly. So I'll demonstrate 3 different star techniques today, starting with the easiest, just kind of a dot pattern. So I'm just doing kind of rows, thinking of this as like maybe it's an asteroid belt, or, you know, use your imagination, kind of make up a story for the cookies. Dots can be as simple or complicated as you want them to be. Now here I'm kind of doing a next level dot, so making a little bit bigger blobs, drawing the toothpick from the center outward, and this kind of makes a little star pattern. So it's kind of fun to have a star on a star. It looks like chicken pox before you smear it around. So this is the most involved, but it's not necessarily difficult. So it's just concentric circles, and then we're going to take our toothpick and drag it from each of the points and each of the indents toward the center, and then we're going to do the exact same thing going between those spots, but from the center outward. And for the stars, I do like pulling the toothpick in both directions. If you pull only from the outside in, the pattern looks kind of like a flower, and if you pull only from the center outward, I think it looks like a spider web. So I think going in both directions is best. And with these ornaments, you kind of have the freedom to do really whatever you want. Since it's a circle, it's kind of a blank canvas for whatever your design is. So the wet on wet technique is fun because it kind of lets you make the ornament look a little bit fancier and like it's more complicated than it was. And it's really not a lot of work here. So you can see this is the same technique we used on the star. So just putting lines next to each other, pulling up, pulling down. You can go both directions, you can go one direction only. The only thing that really kind of is important when you're doing this technique is that your icings need to be all, you know, very close to the same exact consistency. If you have one that's thicker than the others, it'll cause you problems as you're pulling the toothpick through. Now this is the same idea as the previous couple cookie designs, except rather than a bunch of thin lines, I'm doing just a couple thick lines together. So it's very flexible in the way that you approach these cookies, and using, you know, the same colors repeatedly, you can still get a very different look and feel. So just doing a kind of an up and down squiggle back and forth. I think brown is kind of an underrated color, so I used a little bit more of it on my cookies this year than I typically do. So we're doing the same motion that we did on the white cookie, so it's just up and down in one direction, and then on the way back you want to bisect each of your previous strokes. And this next one is just showing the versatility of the idea, so doing 2 of the same squiggle instead of just 1. So it's really kind of having a foundation of techniques that you can use and then just apply them in different ways. And after I was finished with all the designs, I just went through and piped a little icing on and then sprinkled some sparkling sugar on the top of each ornament. So this is just the area where the hook would attach to put it on the tree.